Rita Arrigo is going to help us navigate AI and emerging technologies, including how it's reshaping medical research and the way that we all work. Rita is the Strategic Engagement Manager at the National AI Centre. Her mission is to elevate Australia's global AI adoption and cultivate a responsible AI industry. All very important kind of things to achieve. So please welcome Rita.
Thank you, and thanks for that great introduction. It's been wonderful to get to know you over the past day as I embark on this talk where I'm going to focus on AI and medical research and how AI is reshaping discovery, translation and collaboration in medical research. So I'd like to begin by, go back one. A bit of an acknowledgement of country. So our department acknowledges the First People of the nation, their ongoing cultural and spiritual connection to the lands, waters, seas, skies and communities. And we acknowledge First Nations people as the traditional custodian and lawkeepers and the oldest living culture, and pay respect to our elders past and present. All right, so a little bit about me. Sorry about my little images breaking up. But my name, as you know, is Rita Arrigo, and I am a mother, a wife, a chef, a gardener, a mixologist, but ultimately I'm a human. And I've been in technology for over 30 years, starting my journey as a technologist as one of the only 3 girls in my engineering and computing year at Monash in 1998. Being here today, doing this talk to medical research institutions and medical researchers as the world is ushering in AI is something that girl could not have imagined. So I started out helping the typing pool move to PCs, and then launched Australia's first internet cafe. I think you can see that big computer there. And that was in St Kilda in 1994. And now that has actually been reconstructed at the National Communication Museum in Hawthorne as a cyber cafe. And it was really amazing to see people go in and see the internet, and we could not imagine that it would be on our phones now. The internet looked so different back then. It was so slow, and we needed coffee to just be able to check the websites. But it's fascinating that that since then I started working for Microsoft, and that's where I learned a lot about what I know about AI. Down here was one of the projects I was involved in where we worked with AI to bring back the magpie geese to Kakadu using drone technology and a Healthy Country AI machine learning system. And up the top is some work I did in the very early 2018s for the low vision community, where we developed a product called Seeing AI. It's still available on your phone today, and I think I was showing some people last night. It's still a fantastic party trick, but it was designed for the low-sighted community, and you can take photos of people, and it will tell you their age, their gender, and their emotion. And it was really popular at Parliament House. I had queues of people wanting to know their age. But I think what was really interesting about that is that that product is available to the low-sighted community today. But in the beginning, it was actually the software that did that computer vision was available to any business. And what happened was, at that time, the police started, the law enforcement community started using that, and it mismatched, and particularly for people of colour. And that's actually what started Responsible AI back in 2019, with Microsoft pulling that computer vision software off the market, and you're having to go through guardrails to get there. And so since I've started at the National AI Centre in 2022, I launched Australia's first a responsible AI network, where we looked at ways that we could bring in leadership, design, technology, standards, governance, to help people establish responsible AI in their organisations. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that today, from what it looks like today and the iterations that the National AI Centre has got to. I've also done a lot of work with the AI Industry Connection, that really blurry photo over there, where we bring together Australian AI companies to talk to business. And I was lucky enough to work with CSL last year, where we did AI for drug discovery. It was a full-day workshop where we brought a whole lot of different specialists and that were working in the AI space. At the same time as I've been working at the National AI Centre, I am blown away by the curiosity of Australian industry and their enterprises, but I'm also aware of the fear and anxiety that accompanies this change. So today I want to talk to you about what really matters in the age of AI. So I'm going to take you through a bit of a journey. We're going to do some demos, we're going to talk about the Australian AI industry, and we're going to talk a little bit about how it's reshaping medical research. But first, a little bit about the National AI Centre. Did I miss a slide there? No? Okay. The National AI Centre is about helping people to adopt AI, growing confidence by helping educate Australia, growing Australian AI businesses, improving Australian AI literacy, and helping make trusted AI practices. So we do this every day within the Department of Industry. So I actually would like to thank AAMRI profusely for bringing together the minds that are shaping Australia's medical research, because at the moment we're standing at a pivotal moment where artificial intelligence, data and human creativity are really fusing into something extraordinary. And for centuries I was told by some of the medical researchers at CSIRO, medicines were discovered powered by microscopes and intuition and often luck. And today it's powered by algorithms that can read genomes, simulate molecules and predict the next life-saving therapy. But it isn't a story just about technology, because, as I was saying, AI is not an activity for the IT department alone. It's a team sport where everyone across the enterprise has to get involved. And that's how we can build a story around trust, collaboration and purpose. And Australia does have the talent and the ethics and a connected ecosystem to lead the world in responsible AI for health. So as we embark onto this challenge, we need to ensure we stay ahead in AI with medicine that's human-centred, ethical and impactful. So these aren't just numbers. Things like it takes 12 years or more than $2 billion to develop a new medicine. Less than 12% of the success rate has been cited as one of the meta-analysis of drug development success rates. Things like, international drug discovery is predicted to be 15 to 25% more efficient. But these aren't just numbers. They're barriers that AI is breaking down, and every extra year, every misconnection between the lab and clinic, and AI is helping to remove these inefficiencies. So AI is transforming medical research across these three pillars: discovery, translation and collaboration. In the discovery phase, it's helping us unlock massive genomic and molecular data sets. This is where AlphaFold, the winner of the 2024 Nobel Prize, predicted protein structures. And AlphaFold has already enabled the first drug to be designed entirely in silico, and it's now entering human trials. And this breakthrough dramatically accelerated our ability to understand how proteins function, converting biology to physics, and complementing this, and I know that some of you are working already with the microphysical systems, organs on chips, to provide these human-like testing environments. Translation is moving discovery from lab into the clinical practice, and AI models simulate how treatments will work in real patients, optimising clinical trials design and integrating the multi-omics data to guide this precision medicine. It reduces the time and cost of bringing therapies to market and improves the effectiveness, reducing the reliance on animal testing. But collaboration is where AI really shines, and this is in enabling teamwork through shared data platforms, federated learning, real-time analytics. Researchers can work together across institutions and discipline, and it's specifically powerful for tackling these complex diseases. But I did want to talk about a next wave that's coming, and the next wave being biological intelligence. So Cortical Lab, that's based in Melbourne, is using human neurons cultivated on silicon chips as programmable processors. And researchers can deploy into these living neural networks and observe learning and adaptability. Hon, the leader there, tells me that he'll be able to create a digital twin in his own cortical computer. And it has the potential to use ethical and human-relevant models for applying cognition, drug effects, and neurological mechanisms. So this is actually what it really looks like. It's in Brunswick, and it merges biology with traditional computing to create the ultimate learning machine, and it's the world's first code-deployable biological computers where real neurons are grown directly onto custom chips, creating intelligence that learns and efficient. And unlike traditional AI, these neural systems require much less energy, basically sugar and water, and they're trained to master complex tasks. So it really is computing reimagined. And here in Australia, I wanted to talk a little bit about, the end-to-end stuff that I was referring to in that amazing diagram that I had Leonardo.ai create for me. So let's look at this end-to-end discovery. And what I've tried to do is create what's happening globally, but also what's happening in Australia. What are some examples of some of the companies who are working in that space? So when we look at starting with biology and target discovery, we have isomorphic labs that came out of Google DeepMind, and they aim to use AI to significantly speed up drug discovery and already have their first internal drug candidate in development. In silico medicine also uses AlphaFold with a combination with its AI platform and has designed a treatment already for a carcinoma in just 30 days. It has advanced AI-generated molecules into human trials. At home, we have companies like Algora Pharmaceuticals that are using AI for target discovery, and I'll go into more details about Algora in a minute. In the generative chemistry space, we have Benevolent AI, who uses knowledge graphs and generative platforms and partnered with internal clinical programs, obviously from America. We also have Path AI from Boston, which has trained an enormous data set of pathology images to analyse pathology for cancer research. Locally, we have Monash, who are using Psychic. It's a psychochemical graph neural network for learning protein ligand interactions. And it's a super interesting initiative, and I'll spend a bit of time sharing a bit more about that. In clinical trials, globally, we have a company called Exsensia, who have re-engineered the entire discovery pipeline with generative models and digital twins. And in Australia, we have Opal's TrialKey, who are proving that Australian innovation can scale globally. So a little bit about Algora. They're an Australian company has developed an AI-enabled drug development platform. It's now recently partnered with Candila Pharmaceuticals of India and is leveraging AI to expand to generic cardiovascular and metabolic drugs. This deal that they've just done allows them to have a commercial foothold of building out its AI capabilities and a model using its partnership to grow. They partnered with UNSW Science Data Hub, and in particular with Associate Professor Fatemeh Vafimi, and she is amazing. Last year she won the Women in AI Award, so it does show that women are excelling in this space as well. So a little bit about the other company that I didn't get a chance to mention as when I was going through my slides, and that's Pending.ai. They were also at AI for Drug Discovery at CSL, but they have the world first drug discovery and development platform enabled by scalable quantum mechanics and AI. So I love the way they use the word scalable quantum mechanics. So that's where they're suggesting that they're actually using like quantum mechanics style algorithms, but not necessarily in a quantum computer, because we all know how hard it is to access quantum computers. But what it means is that they can have quantum mechanical calculations combined with experimental data sets across a range of different structures, and have really interesting disease targets, as well as artificial intelligence guided drug libraries and drug profile optimization. And they're backed by Main Sequence, which is a venture capital fund that's done jointly with CSIRO. Sadly, they had to move to Boston because of a lot of the missing middle here in Australia for these kind of developments. And here's a little bit about Trial Key. So Trial Key have advanced AI to enable smarter, faster, more accurate trial design. So they do AI-driven analysis of over 600 million data points, thousands of variables, combined with statistical validation, and they can predict trial success with 92% precision. So they've had dramatic improved trial design, streamlined regulatory and trial processes, and they've developed drug discovery and also doing a lot of work with repurposing capabilities. And they're a fascinating company based in Melbourne. All right. So I'm going to talk to you a little about this recent paper that's just come out, which introduces the concept of multi-agent systems for healthcare. So imagine a network of specialised agents that work collaboratively rather than as one model, so that you can have these agents operating across different domains. So decentralised, yet coordinated. So it enables the handoff between agents, from imaging agent, a diagnostic agent, a treatment agent, a conversational agent. And these implications for medical research and healthcare are that you have faster integration of AI into the clinical workflow. You can have improved safety, auditability, domain-specific governance. It's a real shift from the single foundation model, which we're kind of used to with products like ChatGPT and some of the other Australian medical products I'm going to talk about, to a network of specialised AI agents across, collaborating across care pathways, and each agent handles a clinical task, from triage to imaging to diagnosis to treatment planning, enabling this adaptive learning without pooling sensitive data. So the concept suggests that we can move from one AI model to an ecosystem of clinical co-pilots, and that we can start to kind of look at ways we can do this in Australia. So I've carried on a lot about what's possible, and I wanted to just put together 5 points that might give you a way to think about how you can get started in your journey with AI and implementing AI into your medical research institutes. And I know there really is 2 sides to it. There's AI in the business, in what you're doing with like using AI to respond to bids, or using AI to, accelerate the way you do your meetings or summarise your documents, through to using AI in the labs. So one of the key things that I often say to people when they're getting ready to get started is identify your top 3 bottlenecks. Is it data access? Is it recruitment? Is it throughput? And think about how you can remove one of those bottlenecks. Start funding some AI pilots to measure clinical outcomes. Create an AI governance structure, and I'm going to share with you some of the AI guidance that has been put together by the National AI Centre. Decide. You can either buy, build, or partner for each AI initiative. There's some amazing Australian AI companies out there that would love to work with you. So think about that as well. And publish your quarterly AI impact scorecards to kind of track your progress. Also wanted to share some of the areas where AI AI methods are transforming medical research. So the first one that we talked about, which was, the low discovery success, so the target identification. So traditionally, this has been a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack, but now connecting the dots and integrating genomic and clinical data into a dynamic knowledge graph can uncover new biological targets. And we've already seen this in companies like In Silico Medicine and in Australia, Ignota Labs, using multi-omics machine learning to predict which targets are most likely to translate successfully into therapy, as well as Algorithmic Pharmaceuticals, which I talked about, that's building the AI-powered drug discovery operating system in Sydney. The next one is assay speeds. So I understand this is the bread and butter of biomedical research, but by analysing the results, it's traditionally been slow and error-prone. So AI vision models are now automating high-content imaging, turning terabytes of microscopic images into quantified interpretable data in hours instead of weeks. So platforms like CSIRO, Data61's imaging platforms, or WeHi's phenomic screening AI are already shortening these analysis from days to minutes. The third one is clinical trial design. So we talked about that and the kind of ways that you can use digital twins and patient-specific computational models to simulate responses and optimise. And Australian scale-ups like TrialKey are already building these predicting systems that can dramatically enhance trial design with AI. Then we think about data silos, and I think this is something really interesting that I know AAMRI are really thinking about. And it only works if you can share data safely. So things like federated learning, and it's already being tested by CSIRO and Monash to create metadata standards so we can connect cohorts across institutes without breaching privacy. Second last, manual data extraction. This is like probably something that a lot of your scientists in the room have had to do, unstructured research data, lab notes, PDF, reports. Imagine having a large language model-based document, intelligence that can read and summarise and structure that information, giving scientists the searchable linked insights from prior decades of work. Kind of like giving every researcher a digital archivist. And finally, this whole idea of reproducibility. So if AI is to be trusted in science, every model, every data set, every experiment must be traceable. So MLOps brings DevOps, which is something that we've been used to in the technology area, to ensure that when you rerun a model next year, it's run with the same result, with full lineage and version control. So as AI transforms inefficiency into insights, this is where we see the collaborative and predictive science really coming of age. And I think this is really exciting because it means that, AI doesn't replace the scientific method, it accelerates it. I wanted to talk a little bit about bridging biology and AI with organs on chips. So when we talk about translating discovery into patient impacts, this is where AI meets living biology through these microphysiological systems or organs on chips. So these chips aren't science fiction. They're replicating the structure and function of human tissues, tiny beating hearts, breathing lungs, metabolizing livers, all connected to sensors that record how biology behaves in real time, building this new feedback loop. And AI can predict how compounds will behave. The organs on chips can test it. And these generative models, the same as that powers ChatGPT, are being retrained on biological data to produce these new molecular designs. So in the future, we'll probably see quantum AI simulations predicting these molecular organ interactions before a single experiment is run. And with this MPS data validating every step. This isn't just global, it's happening here. At CSIRO, researchers are pairing AI imaging system with liver and cardiac organ chips, and Monash and WeHi are using microfluidic systems and AI analytics for screening. And there's startups like Bioscout.ai and Optimine that are already experimenting with this hybrid wet-dry labs that close the gap between in silico prediction and in vitro validation. So I think this collaboration shows that Australia can lead in the way in AI-assisted biology, not replacing our scientists, but amplifying our reach. So AI doesn't replace scientists, it amplifies them through human-relevant models. This slide's super complex, but I wanted to put it up just to kind of get started, give you a feel around some of the data governance, data training and leadership models that we suggest in our AI governance, which I'm about to share. So in governing data, you need to have good governance starts with data, make sure you know your data lineage and it's the foundation for trust. Have model risk tiers, not all data has the same level of risks. Bias and performance, we need to make sure that we don't have model drift and drift detection. Documentation, every model should come with some kind of model card. Safety, we need operational safety, like in the way we do a clinical environment, we need rollbacks and AI safety review committee, almost like an ethic boards for algorithms. When we moved into the data training, curated gold label data sets where we trust with high quality manually verified data, that we use active learning, AI that helps find ambiguous cases faster so that the data gets smarter. Synthetic and federated learning, sometimes we don't have enough data, I know that, and so there's synthetic data that comes in, but with full disclosure. And for privacy, we can use federated learning where the model learns across the institute, but the data never leaves the site. Data contracts and standards, benchmarks as well. And I also wanted to mention this area around AI-driven leadership and operating models. So a lot of people suggest you need to appoint a director of translational AI, create an AI portfolio office and governance council, assign data stewards and model owners, and conduct quarterly AI reviews and external audits. So if you want to have a look at some of the work that National AI Centre has, we've just released 2 key documents, we only released them last week, which is guidance for AI adoption. So you have guidance for AI adoption foundations, and you have a whole lot of implementation practices that can help you take the complexity I just presented in the slides below into practice, and you can share it within your senior leadership as well as your scientists. So as promised, I was going to share a little bit about the Australian AI industry and in particular, what's been happening since 2022 when the launch of ChatGPT and the AI world went into a roller coaster. With the parade of new models. So we've got Claude that people are using, we've got from Anthropic, we've got Llama from Meta, we've got Google Gemini in China, we've got DeepSeek, in France we've got Mistral. In business we have Copilot. So within my government department, the Australian government's been using Copilot for over 2 years now. And Copilot is based on OpenAI because of the partnership that Microsoft and OpenAI have. So when you use Copilot, you're pretty much using OpenAI. But what we've done with Copilot in government departments, we've closed it off and made it like a secure little box where all your meetings kind of happen in that space and your SharePoint files and your Teams meetings are there. We've also started to think about homegrown AI. So we've got a company, Sovereign AI Australia, who's just got $10 million to create models that reflect the culture and language and principles of Australia and to provide an alternative to these offshore systems. And of course, we have Monash, who's invested $60 million to build Maverick, which will be used for medical health and climate. And that's going to be in Port Melbourne and is going to be one of those computing platforms that has this vision of being net zero, and so it's not going to use all that energy that we hear about being used in the US, and it's going to be available in July, located in Port Melbourne. And we also have things like Lovable that I've been using. Has anyone here used products like this, like Lovable, like vibe coding? Incredible stuff. You've used it. Incredible. I went home and I was bored. It was raining on a Saturday night and I thought, what am I going to do? I built a website from a picture using Lovable, and it was like, distressed a lot of people in my office because they'd been working on this project for 6 months and $200,000, and I built it on a Saturday night. So it's really interesting the kind of stuff you can get done with Lovable, and particularly for prototyping. But generative AI is not just having an impact on health and life sciences, it's having an impact on all industry, from climate through to finance and human resources, the creative industries, retail, technology. Like I just mentioned, coding is changing so much because now we can use AI to help us to code, and it's really accelerating what's possible. Cybersecurity as well as construction. And I wanted to share with you some of the Australian AI companies that are working in this space. In health, we have Heidi Health that are based in Melbourne, and they've expanded their AI-powered clinical scribe extensively. They started with $10 million in 2023, and they were focused on prioritising doctor adoption. That's their key thing. It's not about, integrating with medical health records. It's just to get doctors to use it. In October, they raised, just last month, they raised $65 million and have already supported 20 million patient interaction across 50 countries. So that is incredible for a company to have done that in less than 2 years. They're an incredible story. Harrison.ai have recently acquired $32 million from the National Reconstruction Fund. They're one of 3 companies that have built their own foundation model on X-rays, and it's very significant what they've achieved. I'll talk a little bit more about them in a sec. Eyes of AI, they've created a digital twin of your mouth. It was a joint venture with CSIRO, and they can predict tooth and gum disease before it even happens. So super exciting for us who go to the dentists. We also have in construction organisations like SOTA, which are born from the wearables in mining, and they source data from Safe Work Australia to identify violations on construction sites and suggest way to fix them. In agriculture, we've got companies like Bitwise. This is crazy stuff, but they've developed the world's largest blueberry model, dramatically improving the yield of berries globally with a combined revenue creation of $5.5 billion. Amazing. A little startup in Tasmania. In the technology platform, we've got companies like Versa.ai who are making voice agents. They recently launched Paris Hilton for Hilton Hotels. So when you ring up, you talk to Paris Hilton. She goes, "Hey, babe," and books you your room. And that was done by a company in Richmond. We also have agentic AI like Relevance. And I'm going to show you my AI agent in a minute that was built by AgenticScale.ai. And I just wanted to talk a little bit briefly about cybersecurity, because I think that's really interesting. We've got Aparte from Macquarie University, which actually uses AI to combat scam calls. So instead of you talking to the scammers, you put your AI onto it, and it's currently being used by CommBank. So super great use, finally, to get those scam callers. So as I promised, I was going to talk a little bit about Harrison.ai. So this is actually the way their model works, and it's called Harrison.rad, and it's a frontier model for radiologically specific foundation models. You can see the generative AI actually generates the description when it looks at the X-ray. And it's recently gone through an inquiry with the Office of Australian Information Commission, and it has satisfied that their patient data shared has been de-identified and sufficiently and is no longer has any personal information and they did that for purposes of the Privacy Act. So it's super exciting to see these companies actually conform to some of the laws around privacy that we have and getting the tick of approval for that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is Relevance.ai, also $22 million from startup funds, and you can use AI agents there to do things like research people on LinkedIn. It will then send a personalised email to that person, and it will follow it up and put it into your CRM. Amazing that you can have agents doing this for you. Now, I promised I would share my agent, so who wants to hear what she sounds like? My voice has been cloned, so let's give her a call.
Hi, I'm Rita's virtual AI assistant. Think of me as Rita 2.0. I reflect her work, ideas and vision in AI, responsible innovation and the future of work. Before we dive in, what is your name and what should we discuss?
Hi Rita, my name is Rita, and I want to know a little bit about what's happening in Australia in AI and health. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Language detection function called with language Huscan and reason user requested information about AI and health in Australia. Wonderful to meet you, Rita. I'd be happy to share some insights on the exciting developments happening in AI and health in Australia. As the AI ambassador at Microsoft, I've had the privilege of working closely with Australian organisations to harness the power of AI for healthcare. One area that's really taken off is the use of AI-powered medical imaging diagnostics. Companies like Heidi Health in Melbourne are pioneering AI-driven medical scribes that can transcribe patient consultations in real time, automating clinical documentation. This frees up clinicians to spend more time with patients. In just over a year...
All right, you get the message. She's having a few glitches. She doesn't normally say that. But, but I do a lot of work testing her. She's got a back end and I can look up who's calling her. I can modify what articles she's reading. She's trained on all my YouTubes, my LinkedIn posts. She doesn't give personal information. She doesn't give financial information. But it's a super exciting tool. And you can kind of see how you can start to use these agentic tools in your organisations. One area that's been super successful with this agentic voice is regional Australia. So we've got agronomists and different people in regional Australia that, you know, they're not often in front of a computer, so they just want to use their phone and talk and get information about what's happening in their garden or in their farm or those kind of things. So feel free to give her a call later. Hopefully she doesn't glitch. Okay, let's keep going. I know I've only got a few minutes left, and because I know I want to give you time for questions. So, you know, the next phase is quantum, where we're going to have a whole range of different cross-cutting enablement happening. And so medical large models are this next leap in discovery and care, where we're entering a new era of healthcare not powered by one isolated model, by medical large models. So things like vision models and 3D large models and multimodal models and all these kind of different applications of large language models in medical health. But I do want to, oh, here we go. This was it. This is the one I was talking about. So this is the large language models understanding the language of medicine, and they're now fluent in the world's medical literature. And in Australia, obviously, we have Harrison and Heidi are building these large language fine-tuned models for clinical conversations and for clinical imaging. And then we obviously have vision models that are trained on millions of medical images, 3D large models, large graph models, and kind of bringing all those models together so that models ultimately, you know, won't replace clinicians or researchers, but augment them to provide a second set of eyes, a deeper memory and curiosity. Okay. So I'm on my close. So I think some of the key takeaways today are around making sure you understand responsible AI, I wanted to show you a whole lot of different types of AI so you can start to play and discover what's possible beyond ChatGPT, and really be optimistic and ambitious about harnessing the power for better societies and, around what's possible with AI. These are the key 6 practices when you download that document that you'll get around, making sure that you know who's accountable, you understand your impacts and plan accordingly, you measure and manage risks, you test your AI, you share essential information with your community, and you maintain that human control. So I'd like to close by saying, AI doesn't replace scientists, it amplifies them, and Australia has a unique advantage to collaborate in the world with AI-powered medicine, and the future of medicine will be rewritten in code, but guided by compassion, and together we can ensure that Australia's moment, just go back, in AI becomes the world's first medical breakthroughs. So with that, I am taking questions. I'm really hanging out for my chocolate frog. You see, I went for exactly on time. And we've got 10 minutes for questions. I want really, really, really hard ones. So who's first?
So I'm happy to help facilitate.
Yay!
We've got a microphone. Hang on, I'll grab it. Oh, there's one just coming.
So that was fantastic. Thank you. Really appreciate you doing that diverse dive into it. Something that's been coming up with through student societies is around applying AI in teaching of health and medical research and medicine, and that if we depend too much on AI, they're not going to develop the skills that allow them to assess whether AI starts hallucinating, just using a general term, or know when you're going crap in, so you're going to get crap out. So could you reflect on how you think AI should be incorporated into how we're training our health and medical researchers?
I think it'd be not wise to ignore AI if you're a medical student, because I think, the reality is that it's out there. But I do think that there's been a lot of work being done by universities to really personalise the AI, because there's two types of AI. There's the AI you don't pay for from ChatGPT that you use that's not licensed, that is like collecting your data and building on that model. And then there's the AI that the university might provide. And already we have people like RMIT, Monash providing specific AI that is personalised for that student and is actually able to help them with areas of their learning. So I think it's really important to realise that it's not just plain old ChatGPT that students are going to have access to. There's going to be much more advanced kind of tailored AI that they will have access to.
Hi, Aretha. Very interesting presentation. That was really great. The concern with AI, and you didn't touch on it very much, is it's only as good as the data that goes into it, that's as mentioned earlier, but also the concern is the bias in the data and creating tools that are intrinsically biased. And how do we control for that? How do we manage the risk of an AI tool that is fundamentally biased?
Wow. Well, it's not going to be good for business, is it? Like we've already seen AWS with their biased recruitment tools, about 5 years old, no longer using that. So I do think responsible AI is good for business, and that's something that, may not be regulated, but it will be definitely something that people will want to make sure that their data is not biased and that it's providing good results. So I think it's about the implementation and making sure that you're not doing that, because otherwise you're really traversing the road of irresponsible AI, which is not going to make you money in the future.
Hi, really interesting presentation. My question was actually very, very similar to yours about the biases, because we know that there are huge data gaps, in the health and medical space, huge data gaps on marginalised and minority populations. If we're thinking about this kind of at a global level, lower middle income countries, ethnic minorities and whatnot. In terms of healthcare and the translation to clinical practice and the biases that come from the lack of data, is this, I guess the impact on patient advice or the impact on clinical advice that's being given to marginalised populations or, people from those populations it might be biased away from them. Has that been considered at all, and how is that going to be
So I think you're imagining a
addressed?
world of people going directly to AI products for advice versus not going to a clinician. Is that what you're imagining?
I think both. So it could be either going directly to AI for advice and not understanding that the advice that's being generated is relevant or not to them, or if healthcare providers take up AI use in trying to interpret results or how to give clinical advice, perhaps that maybe that hasn't been considering the data that has been put into the models.
I think because a lot of the solutions that are being used by health, like Harrison.ai, have been thoroughly tested by Privacy Acts, different testing, that bias is probably something to be worried about in the beginning of AI, because I think now that it's become more pointy with specific applications, it's not just about this generalist environment. And I think already ChatGPT has reduced the amount of medical health advice that it will give, in the same way that we had all the problems with people becoming Google doctors, looking up your Google symptoms. And, I know that was a massive pain for a lot of people in the medical profession, where they'd come in and it'd already be diagnosed by Google. So I think it is about continuing to educate our people, but also if you're going to produce products, to make sure that they do have enough data in them. I know that some of the work that CSIRO is doing in the Indigenous communities is really trying to improve that as well, to improve the data that's been put into that.
Can I just make a quick comment on that? So coming from medical devices, it's actually highly regulated. So this would be considered AI as a medical device. And so as part of that, there are around 10 commandments, as I like to call them, which actually mean that you have to clearly show that you have taken into consideration bias, as well as a number of other factors which were already raised in this talk. So it is actually quite regulated, at least at the FDA level. Australia's a different ballpark though.
That's it. Rita, terrific talk. Can I ask you a two-part question, I suppose? You used the word quantum mechanics rather than quantum computing, and things are moving so quickly. When do you think, with your expert knowledge, that quantum computing may actually be available? And then what would it do to everything you've just shown us?
Good question. We had Nicole Robinson speak, Michelle Simons speak at our AI Leadership Summit last week, and she's already got a specific type of quantum computer working at Telstra to do, some kind of network analysis, but it's a very high-end one, and it's for one specific use case. I know that IBM have already sold their first quantum computing solution, but it's not being delivered till 2028. So it's, quantum is one of those dreams that we all don't know when it's coming. And I think that's why people are using quantum mechanics, like quantum-inspired style algorithms on, normal supercomputers, because that way they can tap in to the quantum thinking without having to have the quantum hardware. Because that's the challenge, there's just no access to the quantum hardware. So yeah, I think I think it's coming. And I think the big difference it will have, and I think I had a slide on it, is around, and I skipped it, it really is around accelerating that whole discovery, translation, collaboration, because of the way that quantum kind of works in this. No more zeros and ones, but it can be 0 and 1 at the same time. So it just really accelerates and is a cross-cutting enabler across it. So I reckon it's a great time to get just normal AI happening, because when quantum comes, you want to make sure you've got your data and your lack of biases and your governance and your risk and all that stuff in place, because you'll want to use those platforms. I think I've got time for one more question.
Hi Rita, thanks for that presentation. I just wanted to ask you about systems. So before Ian Chubb was talking about, you know, the layers and layers of approvals and bureaucracy that we have to get through in medical research. And I wonder how plugged in the NAIC is to kind of improving some of those systems.
I wish we were. But I know that I've been doing a lot of work with the SME, and particularly manufacturing and these areas. And when we go in, we've got these AI adopt centres, and when they go in and do studies with them, I think, oh my God, they're going to, you know, fix their factory, and they're going to put IoT and AI and machine learning in their factories, and they're going to make everything go faster. But no, they start with their business development process. That's where they start. That is the biggest pain that most people have. And so there's all these tender solutions that people are doing where they have like all the tender documentation in a generative AI platform, and then they're able to like respond to the tenders in a much more efficient way. So there's a lot of solutions in that space. So I would have a look at the directory, and you can have a look at tender companies, but a lot of them who are building these tender AI response platforms, you know, they'll work in different sectors. So some will work in construction. I know Core Procure does a whole lot of work in construction. Some other ones will work, but it is the first area that people tend to want to work in, because it's just such a tedious, monotonous area, and it's just so hard to keep everything under control in that bid space. Yeah, so that would be the first thing I'd be working on.
Oh, thanks. I'm lucky. I think I get the last question.
All right, I'm ready.
Mine's around authentication, how you can authenticate when AI has been used. I saw something on YouTube the other day, and I said to my son, "Henry, look at this, look at this." And he just gave me this look and said, "Dad, that didn't happen. That's AI."
Yeah,
so how do you know? Are there
I think
ways of
talking about
watermarking stuff?
Yeah, I think you're talking about AI-generated content, and we do have a paper coming out for making recommendations around AI-generated content and how you label it. You probably noticed that I was labeling some of my diagrams. Closing remarks. Probably noticed this one. Oops. Did I label it? No, I didn't. But there was some previous ones where I was labeling it with how I made it. And that is a strategy that a lot of people are suggesting, because as our world becomes flooded with synthetic data, it's going to be harder and harder to tell what's real. So there is going to be this whole idea around labelling your images. I think it's super exciting for organisations, because your brand is going to be so much more important than this headache that we have at the moment with influencers putting out all this fantastic garbage, right, that is not real. You know, like one of the biggest things I want to debug that influencers have really done to AI is that AI uses so much energy and water. I'm like, so does everything else. You know, like AI is like a tiny component of all the energy and water that's being used in the world. And it just gets this bad rap because some influencer decided to say that if you say please and thank you to ChatGPT, that wastes a whole lot of water. But like, it's just absolute BS. So, but I think it's really important that we start to use our brands and we start to really, you know, label our images and start to show what's real and what's not real. I'm done. Thank you.